On today's show, how did the Miami Heat get Norm Powell? What are the Clippers doing with John Collins now? What are the Jazz doing? And we got Summer League action, almost a game winner, almost overtime. We'll talk about that and more today. Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
And welcome. You're locked on to NBA Game Night. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being an everydayer. Make it Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets on your first $5 bet wins. And joining me, as always, from the great Locked On Bucks show, what'd you see in the NBA tonight, Camille Davis?
We actually had games. We had some basketball. I was like, even though the quality was like standard definition, like 1997 type of high definition, we still had games.
I don't think I could see a single feature. It looked like the old And One. Remember the And One clothes where the basketball player had no face?
No face.
From the wide shot of this Grizzlies Jazz game, it looked like all the players were that because I couldn't see any features and any faces because of how bad the quality was. But anyway, we move. We almost got a game winner. We'll talk about that. We hear from Joe Mulinex on that one. The Thunder and Sixers also played some kind of game. We'll hear from Rylan Stiles on that. We'll play Count It Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including we got to talk about Kevon Looney's hair. We got to talk about it. But let's start here. Let's start with the trade of the day. The Miami Heat get Norman Powell. The Clippers get John Collins now. And the Jazz get Kevin Love, Kyle Slow-Mo Anderson, and a second-round pick. Let's hear from our guy, Wes Goldberg of Locked On Heat.
Well, the Miami Heat surprised everybody with a big trade on Monday morning. They get Norm Powell from the Clippers in a three-way trade. Here are the complete details of the deal. Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson to the Utah Jazz. John Collins goes from the Jazz to the Clippers. Nice little addition for them. And Norm Powell goes to Miami. This is a home run trade for the Heat, especially when you consider all that they gave up was just Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love, valued players, veteran players in Miami's locker room. But the Heat were in desperate need of real shot making, and Norm Powell brings that day one. Shot 42% on more than 7 3-point attempts per game last year while averaging nearly 22 points per game. He adds offense, which is something that Miami desperately needs after finishing in the bottom 10 in offensive rating last season. You could see lineups of Norm Powell with Tyler Hero in the backcourt, spreading out defenses, creating room for guys like Bam Adebayo, Kel'el Ware by the rim. The Heat, it's been a quiet offseason for them so far, but this is a massively impressive trade for the Heat, who might have more up their sleeve here. They're $1.3 million into the luxury tax here. We know that they don't want to pay the luxury tax. They also opened up a roster spot with this deal, so more could be coming out of Miami.
How did the Heat get Norm Powell, a fringe all-star, like almost made the all-star team this year? They only gave up Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson. The second-round pick didn't even come from them.
That's the question I had. I kept rereading the trade details. Like, am I reading this right? Like one of these, this got to be a Miami Heat pick. And I'm like, no. Okay. So Norm Powell to the Heat for Kevin Love and Slow-Mo. Again, players that were respected in that locker room. But in regards to like on-court quality and playing time, like that's an upgrade for them to get Norm Powell, especially if you're getting the Norm Powell before the All-Star break that they got in LA last year. And you have a Norm Powell now that's on an expiring contract, looking to get another bag. Like he should be highly motivated in Miami next to Tyler Hero with Bam Adebayo. Like I like this little core that they're having, even if it's only for a year. It's going to be good offense, I think, for them going forward here.
That's the part, is that it could only be for a year. He's a unrestricted free agent after this year. It didn't seem like the Clippers wanted to pay him, and he wasn't really fitting with Kawhi that well. And so then now we'll see what happens with the Heat. And if the Heat do want to pay him, we'll see what happens there. But it could be a rental. If it's a rental, it's still even good for a rental. They didn't really give up anything. I know we want to say respected veteran and all that, but like respected off the court at this point in those guys' careers. But yeah, he kickstarts their offense. They needed somebody like this. They needed another playmaker. You saw in the playoffs, like just having Tyler Hero initiate your offense over and over and over again was just not cutting it at all. This kind of reminds me of when they got Terry Rozier the first time. We're like, oh, here we go. And it did not work at all for them. And so hopefully this one works better for them.
Yeah, they're going to have to hope this is not a Terry Rozier situation, because that was the summer of Damian Lillard, where it's like, oh, well, if we get Rozier, he can give you 80% of what Dame gives you. And I was like, no.
Does that ever work? Does that ever work when we go, he can give you 80%? We did that. I tried that. I tried the cope so hard when the Mavs lost Brunson. We're like, okay, what if Dinwiddie and like Tim Hardaway steps up? We're like,
and then you're watching and you're like, no, it's just not Erling all the way right, the way I needed to. So hopefully that's not the case for Miami. But if it is, again, an expiring contract, so you only have that 1 year on the books.
Yeah, an interesting one. And for the Clippers, this is kind of the most surprising was for the Clippers side of it. Let's hear from Darian Bazir on this side.
It actually happened. The Clippers trade Norman Powell for John Collins in a 3-team deal that's going to send Norman to the Heat, Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love, and a second-round pick for 2027 to the Utah Jazz. And we get John Collins, the power forward that the Clippers have been looking for to slide Kawhi Leonard back to the 3 and make us a bigger team, has arrived. The goal, to have John Collins be that missing piece like PJ Washington or Aaron Gordon for the Nuggets, to getting them to that next level. Now, the talks are the Clippers might look for Bradley Beal to replace Norman Powell's scoring, but the starting lineup right now I think has such good balance. Bogdanović now is our true sixth man. Harden, Chris Dunn, Derek Jones Jr. to go along with Kawhi, John Collins, and Ivica Zubac. The Clippers have now addressed their backup center need and the power forward to try to improve the roster and make it as good as they can. Find out more about John Collins' Norman Powell trade on Locked On Clippers.
Let him get the plug in.
Almost kicked him out early. Sorry, yeah. It does have balance. I'm worried about their shooting, though, and I'm worried about that from them, because you go from Norman Powell, really good shooter, then you now go to John Collins, who has had a 3 in his career, we'll see, but definitely not a volume shooter, and then you're bringing in a Chris Dunn, you're bringing in a Derek Jones Jr. off the bench. I'm interested there, but I do agree with him that if they are thinking they're going to get Brad Beal, that Brad Beal plus John Collins is more than just Norman Powell on expiring.
Yeah, and I think you need that, because part of the Norm Powell experience in LA that I thought that was so useful for them is that when Kawhi Leonard did miss time, you had Norm Powell that you could fall back on. Now, as mentioned, the fit between him and Kawhi was a little clunky at times, but if you know Kawhi Leonard's health history, like, it's not realistic, I don't think, to expect for him to even play, 75 games in a season. Even if he's completely healthy throughout the season, I think you have to be strategic on when you rest him, because he does have a chronic knee problem. So you want to be careful with that. And having Norm Powell helped alleviate some of the scoring load off of James Harden in those times when you were without Kawhi. So if Bradley Beal is part of the equation for the Clippers, where he's coming in and you get that scoring punch, because Bradley Beal in the vet men is a lot different than Bradley Beal getting paid $55 million. Like, for a vet man, absolutely take the shot on a shot creator like Brad Beal. So if he ends up with the Clippers alongside of like a Chris Paul too, where you kind of get that guard depth, older, but when you have a team that's built around James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and that's the direction you're going to have a little bit more vets trying to get to that championship.
Can the training staff of a team that has Kawhi Leonard, James Harden at his age, Bradley Beal with his injury history, Chris Paul, can they stock enough icy hot? Is there enough to go around for this team? Like, their budget is going to go way up through the roof.
They're going to need to. They got to make sure they invest. Make sure they invest, because there's a lot of creaky joints over there.
Ballmer may just buy the company. Like, he may buy Icy Hot. Let's hear from the Jazz side, our fearless leader, David Locke, on why did the Jazz do this?
Reports from Shams and ESPN, the Jazz have continued the youth movement by moving John Collins. The reported trade has John Collins going to the Clippers, the Jazz receiving Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love, second-round draft pick, and a substantial trade exception that they can use down the road if the reports on this deal are accurate. The Jazz continue to clear playing time for their young players. The front court now opens up for Ace Bailey, Taylor Hendricks, Kyle Filipowski, the same way the Jazz move Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson to clear the space for Isaiah Collier, Walt Clayton, Keontae George, and Brice Sensabaugh. The youth movement is upon us. The Jazz move on from John Collins, who is in his final year of his contract. Norman Powell goes to Miami in a 3-team deal, according to the reports, as the Jazz increase their flexibility, open up minutes for the young players, and move further into the youth movement that's already underway.
This is just about getting John Collins out of the way, pretty much getting it out of the way for playing time, he mentioned, and then also for that trade exception. I would usually scoff at trade exceptions in the past because the Mavs had the biggest one of all time at one point, and they didn't use it at all. But now with this new CBA, we saw the Hawks use their trade exception. We've seen trade exceptions get used, and so that may be valuable here for them.
Yeah, it feels like we're moving in a direction in the NBA where you're going to continue to get more trades rather than you seeing names hit free agency, and they play it that way.
Yes.
I think in part because of the CBA, of course, we're talking about how windows have gotten shorter now, or it seems that windows are getting shorter now with constraints on team building. So for the Jazz to continue to clear space for them to continue to figure out who on the roster is worth building around, it makes sense. And really at this point, Lauri Markkanen is like the only remaining old guard on this Jazz team now, which when you think about how it all came together with Markkanen, it's kind of like, wow, this happened quickly, but also felt like it took a long time to get here at the same time.
Yeah, it does. It does sort of feel like the Thunder rebuild, where it's like those 2 years where they were bad felt so long. I think it's going to be longer for the Jazz than what it took the Thunder to rebuild. Yeah. But yeah, it did feel like those years took forever. Coming up, let's get into the Summer League games. Let's talk about GG Jackson almost took it to overtime. Toe on the line a la Kevin Durant. What do we see from those guys? Who stood out? Plus the Thunder as well. Get into that and more. Coming up, Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. Summer sports are in full swing, baby. My Dallas Wings are getting dominated by the Mercury right now. But that's okay, because we can still bet Paige Beckers for Rookie of the Year. You can also do Summer League bets. I'm looking at anybody that's doing a Summer League bet. Although I will read off the Summer League MVP odds. Reed Shepherd plus 1,000. Nikola Topic, who we're about to talk about for the Thunder, plus 1,000. GG Jackson, who we're about to talk about, plus 1,200. Those are good bets. Probably Dalton Knecht of the Lakers, getting the Lakers bump at 1,500. Buzelis of the Bulls, plus 1,500. Khalil Ware, who did not have a good game the other night, 1,500. VJ Edgecombe, who's becoming a pure Sixer. We'll talk about 1,500, bunch of other ones there. So you can go check that out. And right now, if you are a new customer, you can put down $5. And if you win, you get $150 in bonus bets if that wins. Open the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com or in the app, FanDuel.com. Please gamble responsibly.
Oh, you're on mute, Nick.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA Game Night, making us your first listen each and every day. And we have a show that covers your favorite team. Check the link in the description to find a show that covers your team every single day. Locked On Bucks, Locked On Mavs, Locked On Jazz, Heat, Clippers, any of those. Go check out those. And yeah. All right, let's get into the Memphis Grizzlies. They almost pull off the overtime. The GG Jackson toe on the line runner through the lane, and he got pretty far. Like he took a step outside of the 3-point line, or at least what he thought was outside of the 3-point line, leaped into the lane and hit a runner that would have tied it up, but instead it was deemed a 2-pointer. They reviewed it over and over again with those 360p cameras and decided that it was a 2-point shot. This was some back and forth there through the end, where you had a Cam Spencer 3 that cut it to 1 point. You had a travel in the corner by Brice Sensabaugh. And then Sensabaugh got it back with a steal right before the GG Jackson 2. Let's hear from our guy Joe Mullinax on the Grizzlies, who end up losing this game.
With Summer League basketball, when GG Jackson makes a supposedly game-tying 3-point shot, turns out his toe was on the line by a fraction of an inch. Memphis loses by 1, and you're grateful. At least I'm grateful, right? Who cares? It's a Summer League game. I'm Joe Mullinax of Lockdown Grizzlies, and of course the Grizzlies care. Tuomas Isalo, the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, cares. GG Jackson certainly cared. And the competitive nature of this game, it was a fun contest, but my not caring has more to do with it being a summer league game. The performance matters, and both GG Jackson and Tuomas Isolo had strong nights. For GG, another really impressive offensive performance, better defensive energy, playing as the 4 who could be a combo big forward moving forward. For Tuomas Isolo, the beginnings of the cornerstones of his scheme, full court pressure, short rotations, what the Memphis Grizzlies will look like under Isolo, slowly but surely beginning to show through in Summer League.
Gotta love those short rotations in Summer League.
Right, 8 deep in Summer League.
What did you see from GG Jackson? Because I think he's the one that really stood out to me, besides Cam Spencer hitting 7 of 10 from 3. But GG Jackson's the one that really leaped off the page to me.
Yeah, he definitely looked like he was the best player on the court for the Grizzlies for large stretches throughout the game. He just looked so strong, confident, in control. Didn't really hesitate either when he was looking for his shots. He was efficient on the evening, 11 to 18 for the night for GG Jackson. Again, and just rebounding a little bit there for him, getting to the free throw line for him a bit, putting up threes, getting to the rim, like an overall just blocks, just a really strong performance from GG. But I do also want to shout out Cam Spencer because yes, he did put up 10 threes, but he was also like running their offense. And the playmaking that we saw from Cam Spencer for Memphis was intriguing to me in this game.
This is an interesting one where the difference between these two games, we'll talk about the Thunder and the Sixers, who basically didn't have any rotation players in that game, maybe 1 or 2. This one, you had a bunch. Jalen Wells started 74 games. You had GG Jackson, who's supposed to be in the rotation. Cam Spencer just got signed to another deal. And I thought that GG Jackson showed just a bunch of stuff. And I joked with the Locked On Grizzlies guy that texted him, I was like, hey, are they going to cut? They're going to take GG out at the end of the first quarter because he just looked so much better than everybody else. But he's played almost 30 minutes out there. And I think it is interesting. They played him at the 4. He's definitely a 4 in Summer League, but the Locked On Grizzlies guys think he'd be better as a 4 long-term for them. And I find that interesting to see if he can break into that rotation in some way for the Grizzlies. And then Cam Spencer, you mentioned him running the offense. They're going to need that a little bit with losing Desmond Bane, and they aren't going to keep Cole Anthony. And so they have, and John Morant's going to miss some games. He always does every year. And so that's an interesting thing I think that they can start looking for and maybe pull from.
Yeah, especially with the fact that other teams have to respect his 3-point shot. And when you have a guard that can initiate your offense where other opposing defenses have to respect that shot and play high up, you can really look to manipulate defenses that way by using them playing up on you to get your teammates open. So if he has that type of vision for them, in addition to be able to knock down those open threes, like he's going to be a player on a really, really good contract for them going forward. Yeah. So love to see that. Wells didn't have like the greatest shooting game, but he got to his spots, I thought. So you're encouraged by that as well. But them Jazz, like we saw some from Ace Bailey along the way too.
I was going to say, we got to give credit to the Jazz though, because they end up winning this game, even though the Grizzlies looked dominant in the first quarter. I was like, oh no, this game's going to be a blowout over. And then give credit to the Jazz. They came back and talk about rotation players. They start Ace Bailey, Cody Williams, Kyle Filipowski, Brice Sensabaugh, Isaiah Collier. Like, that could be a starting lineup at a certain point in the Jazz season if they shut some guys down. Walter Clayton coming off the bench. They only had eight guys in this game too. This felt like a playoff rotation for both teams, basically. Brice Sensabaugh, 37 points, hit 6 threes. I mean, just his shooting, and he for them looked like he was completely different. But I want to start with Ace Bailey. 18 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, hit 3 threes. Was running the floor, too, was something that we saw a little bit more in this game, and just looked so much more like the number 5 pick that we expected compared to the first game.
Yeah, I mean, even to start this game, I think he got off to like a 1-4 start in this game, kind of was playing fast, like it was pressing a little bit. And then once the offense really started coming to him, you saw just the ease in which he can score the ball. Like there was one, I think it was Isaiah Collier, found him in the corner. He caught the ball high, did not hesitate, and just put it up. Catch high, shoot high. To be able to do that is such a skill, because if you have to readjust the shot, like you can miss your pocket to get the shot up. So no hesitation from him with that. And we also saw his athleticism on the boards. Like a lot of times you think of athleticism, okay, dunks and, vertical, but like grabbing boards. And you saw that for Ace, 4 offensive rebounds in the game for him. And he scored off of at least 2 of them that I can remember too. So like him finding ways to get into easy offense, you like to see that from a young player.
No turnovers either for him, which was big. And you just saw him make better decisions and play more advantageous, take more advantage of his size. Like you said, we made a lot of jokes when he was not 6'10" and he was actually 6'7", but I don't know. He looked really big out there. And I think that he plays bigger than being 6'7". I think that athleticism helps with that. Brice Sensabaugh, we forget about him. He's only 21. He was drafted in 2023. He was drafted really young, but 37 points for the Jazz. Like his jumper, it just felt like anytime he was putting up a shot, it was going in.
That's what it looked like every time. He's gonna make this.
What was the sound the rim mics make?
The rims in Utah. Don't get me started, Nick. I hated the way that the rim sounded.
It's like a Papa shot.
They sound.
Clunk.
I hate
Clunk.
hard sounding rims. Like it sounded terrible. So to see Sensabaugh get the shots where there's, we can just hear that net. It's like,
yeah,
okay, thank you. I don't have to hear this rim, but a great game from him and someone to keep on the radar too for the Jazz as they're really trying to figure out what they have, who they have, and who they're going to lean on. Like if that shooting is real, that's going to be quite a skill for them to have next to Ace Bailey.
Yeah, and you get some size there, 6'6" as a guard. Mm-hmm. And I think that's interesting. Definitely something to monitor going forward. But yeah, it's interesting to see all these rotation players for the Jazz. I didn't see a lot out of Walter Clayton. He 104, played about 25 minutes, and it looked like he struggled out there. And I think that's another name I think a lot of people are going to be watching for them in Summer League.
Yeah. But rookies, that tends to be part of the game for him. So if anyone's looking at this game and trying to make a big judgment on Walter Clayton, we got to slow it down. But as we wrap here too, just Cody Williams, I thought that he looked pretty good in this game for the Jazz. I know he's been talking about trying to get stronger in this second year, and he mentioned how he's starting to hate food because of how much food he has to eat. But I thought that he was everywhere throughout the game in this one and showed up in key moments. So like if he can keep building. Like he might not be his brother, but like he can be an NBA player that has a good role.
A chicken breast hates to see Cody Williams coming this offseason.
He said mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, anything at this point. He's like, it's all bad now.
Oh, Lord, help me be in a position at some point in my life to hate mac and cheese where I don't want to eat it anymore. Coming up, it's where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Paolo Banchero. Is he worth the full max? And Kevon Looney and his hair. Can we just take a second and go on, Looney? Coming up on Locked On NBA Game.
Big chicken, baby.
I think a lot. I'm very smart.
Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
It's Counted Up. We're counting the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. Paolo Banchero agreed to a 5-year, $287 million deal with a player option. First rookie max deal like that with a player option since Luka and Trae Young. Paolo Banchero has made one All-Star team, 0 All-NBA teams so far in his career, and Orlando's had 2 first-round exits each of the last 2 years. And so I pose the question, Camille.
Count it up.
What does Paolo Banchero have to do in order to be worth this max?
He has to play as we saw last season, but also be able to be on the court for at least 65 games. Like the injury really, I think, kind of tanked that season for him because he was getting off to a start where you're like, okay, he has taken a leap here. He gets the oblique injury. He has to work his way back in there. And he started putting up some numbers, but it just didn't look exactly how it did to start the year when he was in a better rhythm. So
it was 5 games. It was 5 games to start the season. I know he had 50 in one of them, but it was 5 games.
But those 5 games, wow. Wow. But I mean, he's also a young player. And like I mentioned earlier, I think that we're moving in direction in the NBA where trades are more feasible. So like lock guys up. If it does not work, you figure out how you move off of it later on.
Yeah, I think that he can be worth this contract for sure. I know I sound like a hater posing the question, but I mean, he's got to lead the team, and they've got to make some run in the playoffs. It has to lead to team success, and I think they've got that team now. And I think this season, it's this season. They're going, all right, you're going into your 4th season, and hopefully they're all healthy going in. We bring in Desmond Bane. We made a win now move. Let's go. Let's do it. And yeah, staying healthy is the first thing, but his playmaking has taken a step forward since his rookie year. That's been a massive advantage. And then you just don't get this level of size, shooting, playmaking for many players. And so to be worth a max, though, at that level, like, I don't even know if we would think Trae Young is worth the max level that he got. I mean, you think Luka is, but I tend to think that less players have been worth a max. If you're going to say this is the max, then we can't be given like, when DeMar DeRozan got the max with
everybody
the
can't get it
Raptors.
because then it dilutes the whole concept of a max.
Yeah, right. And then it makes the one like the Luka contract you're like, well, he's probably worth way more than that. This guy's getting the same money. The Pelicans posted a photo of Kevon Looney signing his contract to play in New Orleans. Let me set the scene for you. He's signing the deal. He's the paper and pen. He's looking up from the table. He's sitting at the table. There's a screen behind him with the Pelicans logo, and then his face, his headshot is above his shoulder where he has short hair. His new hair in the photo, like IRL that he has, looks like he's wearing a disguise to me. Look like he put the hair on right there because of the contrast with the headshot that he has right behind him. A tweet is now going viral that says, "We signed Rick James." My question is, will Kevon Looney start to have an orange glow of aura around him as he walks into rooms with this new hair?
Now, listen, just because you get the hair doesn't mean you get the vibes, okay? There is one Rick James and one Rick James only. And I think only the Dave Chappelle version of him actually glowed. So,
yeah, right.
Listen, as someone who also has locks, so you can do different things with your hair, the bangs is what caught me off guard and which really made it feel
that's right,
Rick James-ish. Because I think if he didn't have the bangs, it would have hit a little different, but very, very Rick James, very 70s, as I say, with a flower scarf on my head. So it was kind of like the pot calling the kettle black a little bit here.
Well, as long as it wasn't me. Do you have to know going in? You're like, all right, I need the bangs, or do you just do it all up and then they're like, all right, let's try bangs? I guess you can't.
It's either because his hair in the front was actually shorter, so he said this is just how it's going to be, or it was a conscious decision of I want the bangs. And if it's the latter, come on, I want to have a conversation.
Were you disappointed in him, or were you just surprised?
I was so surprised. I was like, wait a second. This ain't Kevon. What? It is Kevon. I was like, okay. Live your life, Rick. I see you.
If you haven't in a while, go back and watch the Rick James, Dave Chappelle sketch, because it is a classic. A classic one. Eddie Murphy's brother. Oh my gosh. Okay, here's one. You being a football fan. The Houston Rockets signed Dorian Finney-Smith, Michael Scott reports, to a 4-year, $53 million deal, fully guaranteed in the first 2 seasons. The third year is a non-guaranteed salary, and the fourth year is non-guaranteed salary and a player option.
Count it up.
Between this and Duncan Robinson's non-guaranteed deal and others, are we going to start to see more non-guaranteed deals like the NFL has with this new CBA?
Ooh, that's an unexpected consequence of the CBA that I didn't even consider. But seeing how the contracts are playing out, I think you will start to see those a bit more often for those mid-tier role players where it's like, you're in that 15, maybe up to $20 million range annually. So like, let's try to add some things on here to give us protection, but also give you a way to cash in if you play up to a certain level that we think that you can. So yeah, I think that could be something that we start to see a little bit more often, but I could also see the players trying to push back on that a bit because when you have guaranteed money, it is hard to go and be like, I'm going to accept most of my fellow, players here getting these deals because it could affect me down the stretch and I want my guaranteed dollars.
Well, and it's a $53 million deal, but it's really only like 27 the guaranteed for sure. So it's completely different when you look at it. And to me, I think flexibility is the most important thing for an NBA team now. You look at what the Celtics just did. They're like, all right, we can't even just keep these guys for a gap year. We're going to just punt on Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, even Luke Cornett. We're not going to try and keep him, all that. Al Horford doesn't look like they're going to try to keep him either. And like, all right, we're just going to go for flexibility. We've seen so many teams do this. Teams not use their exceptions because they want to keep their flexibility and not have to be pushed up against one of the aprons, the luxury tax levels. I just found this interesting because we've seen more of these non-guaranteed deals like this where teams want more flexibility. Players are betting on themselves. This is the best way to bet on yourself if you're an NBA player, but it depends who makes that choice. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah, like you said, depends on who's making the bet. I think that's the key part.
Yep, that's the one. And he did get 2 years guaranteed, but still, like, it's interesting. Chris Paul set to retire, according to himself. After this year, he will need to average, this is a Reddit post that I just found fascinating.
Okay.
He will need to average a certain number of assists per game over 82 in his final season to surpass John Stockton for the top spot on the all-time assist leaderboard. Can you guess how many assists per game he needs to? I'm just going to do that first. How many assists per game does he need to get in order to pass John Stockton for 82 games?
I'm going to guess it's 5. I'm going to guess he's going to need like 14 a game or something like that.
It's much higher.
22. Higher? 30? 35? 45?
No, just like 40.3. He'll need to average 40.3 assists per game over 82 games in order to pass John Stockton. I think isn't Chris Paul is like, he is very high when it comes to assists, and yet he's not anywhere close to what John Stockton is, which is just absolutely incredible for him to have that number. And my next question is, do you think he can do it?
Absolutely not. Not even in 2K can I see somebody averaging 41 assists a game. That's a lot of assists. That's crazy.
Chris Paul is number 2 all time in assists, and he would need to average 40.3 over 82 games in order to pass John Stockton, who is number 1.
The gap. Like that John Stockton assist record might be one of those ones that I don't see touched in my lifetime.
I mean, as long as you're allowed to make up assists. Are we allowed to say this on this network? Are we allowed to?
Hey, listen, there's an argument about what happened in Utah with some of those assists, but you can also argue some of the assists now are like, okay, that's generous.
Do you know who the next closest? So Chris Paul's number 2. Do you know who the next closest are in the NBA as far as career total assists all time?
Like active players?
Yeah, active players.
Ooh, I'm not actually sure. Is Russ on there somewhere?
Russ is 8th right now, but there's a player between Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook.
Between Chris Paul and Russell
He's tops in like every
LeBron.
stat. Yeah, LeBron James is 4th. Yeah, Russell Westbrook at 8th. There's somebody at 13th. Ton of assists, playing for a long time now.
It's not like Steph, is it?
You haven't seen his chin in like a decade and a half.
Oh, James Harden.
James Harden is 13th. And then 19th is a guy that signed today.
That signed today?
Yeah. We're hitting all the news today.
Who is it?
Kyle Lowry, 7,099 assists. And then 27 is Mike Conley. 29 is Steph Curry.
I figured Steph would be somewhere in there, but
way lower than I thought.
Lowry. That's impressive.
He's top 20 in assists all time, Kyle Lowry.
That's impressive.
Great stuff on this show today, and great stuff from all of our hosts everywhere. Check the links in the description to find your favorite team's show. We've got all of them all over the place. Locked On Bucks with Camille Davis. What are you guys talking about this week?
We've been talking about the Miles Turner fallout, some roster navigation, if there's any more moves for the Bucks to make, and then we'll be looking ahead to Summer League.
Damian Lillard, 41st all-time in assists, by the way. We're talking about Cooper Flag, and I'm going to go see him in Summer League, so I'm very excited about that. So go check out great shows all across Locked On. Go check out Locked On NBA with Doug, Hayes, and Matt. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA Game Night.